Good evening. Good evening and welcome to Third Church, New York City. Let's begin by singing hymn number 258. I'll read the first verse. Oft to every man and nation comes the moment to decide, in the strife of good with falsehood, for the good or evil side. A great cause, God's new Messiah, shows to each the bloom or blight. So can choice be made by all men, twixt the darkness and the light. Hymn number 258. I'll read from the Bible and correlative passages from Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. This week's readings have to do with the concept of a just government. the Bible. I'll read from the New International Reader's Version. 1 Chronicles. Let the heavens be filled with joy. Let the earth be glad. Let them say among the nations, the Lord rules. Let the ocean and everything in it roar. Let the fields and everything in them be glad. Let the trees in the forest sing with joy. They will sing before the Lord. He will judge the people of the world. 1 Kings. King David was now very old. Adonijah was the son of David and his wife Haggith. He came forward and announced, "I'm going to be the next king." So he got chariots and horses ready. He also got 50 men to run in front of him. His father had never tried to stop him from doing what he wanted. His father had never asked him, "Why are you acting the way you do?" Adonijah was also very handsome. And now that Absalom was dead, Adonijah was David's oldest son. Nathan asked Solomon's mother Bathsheba, "Haven't you heard? Adonijah, the son of Haggith, has made himself king, and David doesn't know anything about it. So let me tell you what to do to save your life. It will also save the life of your son Solomon. Go in and see King David. Say to him, 'You promised me. You can be sure that your son Solomon will be king after me. He will sit on my throne.' If that's really true, why has Adonijah become king?" So Bathsheba went to see the old king in his room. Bathsheba bowed low in front of the king. "What do you want?" the king asked. She said to him, "My master, you made a promise in the name of the Lord your God. You promised me, your son Solomon will be king after me. He will sit on my throne. And now Adonijah has made himself king, and you don't even know about it. He has sacrificed large numbers of cattle, fat calves, and sheep. He has also invited all the king's sons, but he hasn't invited your son Solomon. All the Israelites are watching to see what you will do. They want to find out from you who will sit on the throne after you. If you don't do something, I and my son Solomon will be treated like people who have committed crimes. That will happen as soon as you join the members of your family who have already died." Then the king made a promise. He said, "The Lord has saved me from all my troubles. You can be sure that he lives, and you can be just as sure that I will do what I promised. I promised you that your son Solomon would be king after me. He will sit on my throne in my place." So Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet had Solomon get on King David's mule, and they brought him down to the Gihon spring. Zadok the priest had taken an animal horn from the sacred tent. The horn was filled with olive oil. He anointed Solomon with the oil. A trumpet was blown. All the people shouted, "May King Solomon live a long time." They were filled with great joy. Solomon showed his love for the Lord. He did it by obeying the laws his father David had taught him. And the Lord appeared to Solomon. He spoke to him in a dream during the night. God said, "Ask for anything you want me to give you." Solomon answered, "You have been very kind to my father David, your servant. That's because he was faithful to you. And you have continued to be very kind to him. You have given him a son to sit on his throne this day. Lord my God, you have now made me king. You have put me in the place of my father David, but I'm only a little child. I don't know how to carry out my duties. I'm here among the people you have chosen. They are a great nation. So give me a heart that understands, that I can rule over your people. I can tell the difference between what is right and what is wrong. The Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for that, so God said to him, You have not asked to live for a long time. You have not asked to be wealthy. You have not even asked to have your enemies killed. Instead, you have asked for wisdom. You want to do what is right and fair when you judge people. Because that is what you have asked for, I will give it to you. I will give you a wise and understanding heart. The Queen of Sheba heard about how famous Solomon was. She also heard about how he served and worshiped the Lord. So she came to test Solomon with hard questions. Solomon answered all her questions. There wasn't anything too hard for the king to explain to her. So the Queen of Sheba saw how very wise Solomon was. She saw the palace he had built. She saw the food on his table. She saw his officials sitting there. She saw the robes of the servants who waited on everyone. And she saw the burnt offerings Solomon sacrificed at the Lord's temple. She said to the king, Back in my own country, I heard a report about you. I heard about how much you had accomplished. I also heard about how wise you are. You are twice as wise and wealthy as people say you are. The report I heard doesn't even begin to tell the whole story about you. How happy your people must be. How happy your officials must be. May your Lord be praised. That's why he has made you king. He knows you will do what is fair and right. Numbers. I am the Lord. I am slow to get angry. I am full of love. I forgive those who sin. I forgive those who refuse to obey. But I do not let guilty people go without punishing them. Judges. Abimelech was the son of Jerubbaal. He went to his mother's brothers in Shechem. He said, Speak to the citizens of Shechem. Tell them, you can have all 70 of Jerubbaal's sons rule over you, or you can have just one man rule over you. Which would you rather have? Remember, I'm your flesh and blood. Then the people decided to follow Abimelech. They said, He's related to us. They gave him 28 ounces of silver they had taken from the temple, and Abimelech used it to hire some men. They were wild and weren't good for anything. They became his followers. Abimelech went to his father's home. There on a big rock, he murdered his 70 brothers. All of them were the sons of Jerubbaal. But Jotham escaped by hiding. He was Jerubbaal's youngest son. All the citizens of Shechem came together. They wanted to crown Abimelech as their king. Jotham was told about it, so he climbed up on top of Mount Gerizim. He shouted down to them, Citizens of Shechem, listen to me. Then God will listen to you. One day the trees went out to anoint a king for themselves. They said to an olive tree, Be our king. But the olive tree answered, Should I give up my olive oil? It's used to honor gods and people alike. Should I give that up just to rule over the trees? Next, the trees said to a fig tree, Come and be our king. But the fig tree replied, Should I give up my fruit? It's so good and sweet. Should I give that up just to rule over the trees? Then the trees said to the vine, Come and be our king. But the vine answered, Should I give up my wine? It cheers up gods and people alike. Should I give that up just to rule over the trees? Finally, all the trees spoke to a bush that had thorns. They said, Come and be our king. The bush asked the trees, Do you really want to anoint me as king over you? If you do, come and rest in my shade. But if you don't, I will destroy you. Fire will come out of me and burn up the cedar trees of Lebanon. Did you act in an honest way when you made Abimelech your king? Have you been fair to Jerubbaal and his family? Remember that my father fought for you. He put his life in danger for you. But today you have turned against my father's family. You have murdered his 70 sons on a big rock. Abimelech is the only son of my father's female slave. Have you done the right thing to his family today? If you have, may you be happy with Abimelech, and may he be happy with you. But if you haven't, let fire come up from Abimelech and burn you up. And let fire come out from you and burn Abimelech up. Then Jotham ran away. Abimelech ruled over Israel for 3 years. Then God stirred up trouble between Abimelech and the citizens of Shechem, so they turned against Abimelech. So Abimelech and all his troops started out at night. They went into their hiding places near Shechem. Next, Abimelech went to Thebes. He surrounded it. Then he attacked it and captured it. But inside the city there was a strong tower. All the people in the city had run to it for safety. They had locked themselves in. They had climbed up on the roof of the tower. Abimelech approached the entrance to the tower to set it on fire. But a woman dropped a large millstone on him. That's how God punished Abimelech for the evil thing he had done to his father. Job. Can someone who hates to be fair govern? He destroys the mighty without asking them questions in court. Then he sets others up in their places. 2 Peter. There were also false prophets among the people. In the same way, there will be false teachers among you. Many people will follow their lead. These people will do the same evil things the false teachers do. They will cause people to think badly about the way of truth. The Lord knows how to save godly people. He knows how to keep them safe in times of testing. The Lord also knows how to keep ungodly people under guard. They are bold and proud, so they aren't even afraid to speak evil things against heavenly beings. These people speak evil about things they don't understand. They will be paid back with harm for the harm they have done. Psalms. God, have mercy on us and bless us. God, may the nations praise you. May all the people on earth praise you. You rule the people of the earth fairly. You guide the nations of the earth. May God continue to bless us. May God rise up and scatter his enemies. May you, God, blow them away like smoke. Isaiah. The people who are now living in darkness will see a great light. They are now living in a very dark land, but a light will shine on them. You set Israel free from Midian long ago. In the same way, you will break the heavy yoke that weighs Israel down. You will break the wooden beams that are on their shoulders. You will break the rods of those who strike them down. Every fighting man's boot that he wore in battle will be burned up. So will every piece of clothing covered with blood. All of them will be thrown into the fire. A child will be born to us. He will rule over us, and he will be called Wonderful Advisor and Mighty God. He will also be called Father who lives forever and Prince who brings peace. There will be no limit to how great his authority is. The peace he brings will never end. He will rule on David's throne over his kingdom. He will make the kingdom strong and secure. His rule will be based on what is fair and right. It will last forever. The Lord's great love will make sure that happens. He rules over all. Micah. The law of the Lord will be taught in Zion. His message will go out from Jerusalem. He will judge between people from many nations. He'll settle problems among strong nations everywhere. They will hammer their swords into plows. They'll hammer their spears into pruning tools. Nations will not go to war against one another. They won't even train to fight anymore. Isaiah. Shout for joy, you heavens. Be glad, you earth. Burst into song, you mountains. The Lord will comfort his people. Colossians. Let the peace that Christ gives rule in your hearts. As parts of one body, you were appointed to live in peace. And from the Science and Health with Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy. Mind, supreme over all its formations and governing them all, is the central sun of its own systems of ideas, the light and light, the life and light of all its own vast creation, and man is tributary to divine mind. The attributes of God are justice, mercy, wisdom, goodness, and so on. When man is governed by God, the ever-present mind, who understands all things, man knows that with God all things are possible. Be firm in your understanding that the divine mind governs, and that in science, man reflects God's government. A higher and more practical Christianity, demonstrating justice and meeting the needs of mortals in sickness and in health, stands at the door of this age, knocking for admission. Will you open or close the door upon this angel visitant, who cometh in the quiet of meekness, as he came of old to the patriarch at noonday? Want of uniform justice is a crying evil caused by the selfishness and inhumanity of man. Pride, envy, or jealousy seems on most occasions to be the master of ceremonies, ruling out primitive Christianity. A selfish and limited mind may be unjust, but the unlimited and divine mind is the immortal law of justice as well as of mercy. The belief of life in matter sins at every step. Material beliefs would slay the spiritual idea whenever and wherever it appears. Though error hides behind a lie and excuses guilt, error cannot forever be concealed. Whoever uses his developed mental powers like an escaped felon to commit fresh atrocities as opportunity occurs is never safe. God will arrest him. Divine justice will manacle him. His sins will be millstones about his neck, weighing him down to the depths of ignominy and death. The wicked man is not the ruler of his upright neighbor. Let it be understood that success in error is defeat in truth. The watchword of Christian Science is scriptural. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Take away wealth, fame, and social organizations, which weigh not one jot in the balance of God, and we get clearer views of principle. Break up cliques, level wealth with honesty, let worth be judged according to wisdom, and we get better views of humanity. As named in Christian Science, animal magnetism or hypnotism is the specific term for error or mortal mind. It is the false belief that mind is in matter and is both evil and good, that evil is as real as good and more powerful. This belief has not one quality of truth. Animal magnetism has no scientific foundation, for God governs all that is real, harmonious, and eternal, and his power is neither animal nor human. The mild forms of animal magnetism are disappearing, and its aggressive features are coming to the front. So secret are the present methods of animal magnetism that they ensnare the age into indolence and produce the very apathy on the subject which the criminal desires. Mankind must learn that evil is not power. Its so-called despotism is but a phase of nothingness. Christian Science despoils the kingdom of evil and preeminently promotes affection and virtue in families and therefore in the community. Justice requires reformation of the sinner. Mercy cancels the debt only when justice approves. Sorrow for wrongdoing is but one step towards reform, and the very easiest step. The next and great step required by wisdom is the test of our sincerity, namely, reformation. So it will ever be till we learn that there is no discount in the law of justice, and that we must pay the uttermost farthing. The measure ye meet shall be measured to you again, and it will be full and running over. Divine love corrects and governs man. Men may pardon, but this divine principle alone reforms the sinner. When we learn the way in Christian Science and recognize man's spiritual being, we shall behold and understand God's creation, all the glories of earth and heaven and man. The universe of spirit is peopled with spiritual beings, and its government is divine science. Let unselfishness, goodness, mercy, justice, health, holiness, love, the kingdom of heaven, reign within us, and sin, disease, and death will diminish until they finally disappear. Heaven, harmony, the reign of spirit, government by divine principle, spirituality, bliss, the atmosphere of soul. Let's pray for the congregation, first silently, then repeat together the Lord's Prayer. The Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Let's sing hymn number 111. High in the heavens, eternal God, thy goodness in full glory shines. Thy truth shall break through every cloud that veils and darkens thy designs. Hymn number 111. This church is a branch of the Mother Church, the First Church of Christ Scientist in Boston, Massachusetts. We hold Sunday services at 11 a.m. and Wednesday testimony meetings at 7:30 p.m. We also have services in Spanish, Sundays at 1 p.m. and Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m. All services are now held online and in person. Third Church offers Sunday school classes online and in person for children and teens. These free one-hour classes are held each Sunday, where students learn how much God loves them and cares for them. They also learn more about the Bible characters and lessons and the healing power of truth. For more information on times and classes, please send us an email, thirdchurch@thirdchurchnyc.com. Third Church maintains a reading room on the first floor of this building. The reading room provides a quiet place for prayer and study, and all are welcome. Here you may purchase books and recordings on Christian Science. The reading room has the latest issues of the Christian Science Monitor, an award-winning international news weekly, available to read or purchase. Reading room hours are Monday through Friday from 1 to 4 p.m. Christian Science is practical and it heals. Our meeting is now open for all to share experiences of healing and spiritual insights that show God's ever-presence and power in their lives. If you're listening by telephone and would like to share, press *6 and wait until your line is unmuted. Please speak directly into the microphone of your phone. Don't use the speakerphone. This way your message will be easier to hear. If you're watching by Zoom, you can choose the raise your hand icon or unmute yourself and speak.
Thank you for your readings this evening. There's some guiding principles of good government given in the science textbook, Mrs. Eddy's book, Science and Health. And perhaps the principles are long-standing Christian principles that man is self-governed only when he's governed by God. The lesson this week has a passage, the lesson is on spirit, has a passage about the first commandment. And for men to have one God, basically is the cure-all for all governmental ills. She said it ends wars, takes away the curse on does what cures whatever is bad, social, political laws. And that idea, having one God as the basis of government, is the metaphysical key to good government. You read about David and his kingdom, that he was a good king. And then his sons, one of his sons, battled to take over that for themselves. There's many bad kings as well as good kings in the Bible. This country embarked on ancient and actually a very new experiment with democracy, representative government. It seems so, right now, it seems that the country is so divided in different beliefs, so that need to have one God is a solution to which much work needs to be done. Although, let the reign of truth establish us. It's a letting process. The government, righteous. I'd say that once they asked Mrs. Eddy what her politics were, she replied, "I have no politics but righteous government." And I've thought of it, and it's a good standard. It isn't so much the party or the political platform as that's the litmus test, the test of a good candidate, but whether he will believe in the rule of law and try to hold the rule of law and be principled and seek righteous government, and hold the Constitution. Christian Science teaches us to defend ourselves against aggressive mental suggestion. And that teaches me one of the corollaries of that is that if we are to live in a democracy, we must be always vigilant to weed out that which is not righteous and to be proactive in doing what we can to work for and support righteous government. Um, and I appreciate all of the guidance about the first commandment in this reflection. Thank you for your readings.
Thanks to all for their presence and their prayerful thoughts during the service. Let's conclude by singing hymn number 340. There's a wideness in God's mercy, like the wideness of the sea. There's a kindness in his justice, which is more than liberty. Hymn number 340.